I always thought I knew my father, until I overheard a conversation that changed everything. It turned out that the man I called Dad was not my biological father. What I discovered next turned my life upside down forever. Growing up, my life seemed pretty typical. I was the middle child in a family of 5, with an older sister, a younger brother, and 2 parents who loved us fiercely. We had our share of ups and downs, like any family, but I always felt a sense of stability in my life. My dad was my hero, strong, funny, and always there to support me. Little did I know that the foundation of my family was built on a secret that would shake my world to its core. It all started on a seemingly ordinary Saturday morning. The sun was shining, and I was sprawled out on the living room floor, scrolling through my phone. My sister, Mia, was in the kitchen making pancakes, and my brother, Jake, was busy playing video games. I could hear my parents chatting in the background. Everything felt normal until I overheard a conversation that caught my attention. "Do you think she'll ever find out?" my mom asked, her voice low and cautious. "Maybe it's time we tell her," my dad replied, sounding more serious than I had ever heard him. My heart raced. What were they talking about? I tried to dismiss it, convincing myself that it had to be something trivial. But as the day went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I decided to confront my mom later that evening. After dinner, I gathered my courage and approached her. "Mom, I overheard you and Dad talking earlier. Is everything okay?" Her face paled, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "Oh, honey, it's nothing to worry about. Just some adult stuff." But I wasn't buying it. No, it felt serious. "Please, just tell me." She sighed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's not the right time, sweetheart. You're still young." "Mom, I'm 16. I can handle it," I insisted, my frustration bubbling over. Finally, she relented. "Okay, but promise me you won't freak out." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I promise." "Your dad? He's not your biological father," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Your dad adopted you when you were a baby. Your biological father. He wasn't in the picture." I was stunned. My mind raced with questions. "Why didn't you tell me? Who is he? Why didn't I know?" My mom looked at me, her expression filled with a mix of sadness and love. "We wanted to protect you. Your dad loves you as if you were his own, and we thought it was best to keep it a secret. Your biological father, he wasn't a good person. We didn't want that part of your life to affect you." I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, confusion, betrayal. "So, my whole life has been a lie?" "No, sweetie. Your dad is your dad in every way that matters. He raised you, loved you, and cared for you. That doesn't change," she said, reaching out to touch my arm. But it didn't feel that simple. I needed to know more. "Can I meet him? My biological father?" My mom hesitated, her expression shifting to concern. "I don't think that's a good idea. He hasn't been a part of your life for a reason." But I was determined. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to let this go. Over the next few days, I couldn't focus on anything else. I spent hours online, digging through public records, searching for my biological father. I found his name, David Miller, and learned that he lived in a nearby town. As I sat in my room, I felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Should I go see him? What would I even say? My heart raced at the thought of confronting this man who was a stranger yet held a piece of my identity. After days of internal struggle, I made up my mind. I was going to find him. I told Mia and Jake about my decision, and while they were supportive, I could see the worry in their eyes. "Just be careful," Mia said, her voice laced with concern. Finally, the day arrived. I drove to the address I had found, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. As I pulled up to the small house, my heart raced. It was a modest home, nothing extravagant, but it felt like a portal to a completely different life. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A few moments later, a man in his late 40s opened it. He had dark hair with streaks of gray and a rugged face that looked like it had seen its share of struggles. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice deep and gravelly. Hi. I'm looking for David Miller." I stammered, my nerves getting the best of me. "That's me," he said, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Who are you?" I'm your daughter," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop myself. His expression shifted from confusion to shock, and for a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other. "What do you mean?" "I was adopted by my dad. My mom just told me the truth," I explained, my voice trembling. He stepped back, letting me in. "Come in, please." As I crossed the threshold, I felt an odd mix of emotions. This was my father, yet I felt like I was intruding on his life. We sat down at a small kitchen table, and I could see the tension in the air. "I didn't know about you," he said, his voice low. "I never wanted to hurt anyone." "Why weren't you there?" I asked, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why didn't you fight for me?" He looked down, shame washing over his face. "I was young and stupid. I made a lot of mistakes. Your mother thought it was best for you not to know me." "Best for me?" I echoed, my voice rising. "I feel like I've been robbed of my identity." "I understand," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I never meant for it to be this way. I wanted to be a better man, but life didn't give me that chance." We talked for hours, about my life, his life, and the choices that led us to this moment. I learned that he had struggled with addiction and had never really gotten his life together. He told me about the mistakes he made and how he had tried to change, but it always seemed out of reach. I left his house that day with a heavy heart. I had answers, but they only led to more questions. My mind was spinning as I drove home, replaying our conversation over and over. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and an odd sense of relief. I had met him, but I still felt a void. When I got home, my mom was waiting for me. "How did it go?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "It was complicated," I said, trying to find the right words. "He's not the monster I imagined, but he's not a hero either." She nodded, her expression filled with understanding. "I'm sorry you had to go through this alone. Your dad loves you, and he's always been there for you." "I know," I replied, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. "But it's hard to reconcile everything. I feel like I'm living in two worlds." Over the next few weeks, I struggled to find my footing. I spent more time with my biological father, trying to understand him and the choices he made. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Some days, I felt angry and betrayed, while other days, I felt a strange connection to him. One evening, as I was sitting in my room, my phone buzzed with a message from him. "Can we talk? I have something important to share." My heart raced. What could be so important? I agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop. When I arrived, he looked more serious than usual. "I've been thinking a lot about my life and the choices I made," he began, his voice steady. "I want to make things right. I want to be a part of your life, but I also understand if you don't want that." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. "I don't know what I want yet," I admitted. "It's all so new to me." He nodded, his expression filled with understanding. "I get it, but I want you to know that I'm here if you need me. I'm trying to change, and I want to be a better person for you." As we talked, I realized that this was my chance to rewrite my story. I didn't have to let the past define me. I could choose how to move forward, whether it was with him or without him. In the weeks that followed, I found a balance between my two worlds. I spent time with my dad, who had raised me, and slowly began to build a relationship with my biological father. It wasn't easy, but I felt empowered by the choices I was making. Eventually, I sat down with my dad, the man who had raised me. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something," I said, my heart pounding. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his eyes filled with concern. "I found out about my biological father," I said, watching his reaction closely. He took a deep breath, his expression a mix of surprise and sadness. "I was afraid you'd find out one day, but I want you to know that you are my daughter, and nothing will change that." "I know," I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. "But I want to be honest with you. I'm trying to understand my past, and that includes him." He nodded, his eyes glistening with emotion. "I understand. Just remember, I've always been here for you, and I always will be." In that moment, I felt a sense of peace. I was navigating a complicated situation, but I had the love and support of my family. I realized that family isn't just about blood. It's about the bonds we create and the love we share. As time went on, I found a way to embrace both sides of my identity. I learned to appreciate the love my dad had given me while also acknowledging the complexities of my biological father. It was a journey of self-discovery, and I was finally ready to embrace it. In the end, I learned that life is messy and families can be complicated. But through it all, love is what truly matters. I may have started this journey feeling lost, but I ended it with a newfound sense of self and a deeper understanding of what it means to be a family. After that first meeting with David, my biological father, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. Each day felt like a new chapter in a book I never signed up to read. I oscillated between anger, confusion, and a strange sense of curiosity. The more I learned about him, the more questions I had. My mom had always painted him as a shadowy figure in my life, someone whose absence was a protective barrier. But now he was real, flesh and blood, and he had a story that intertwined with my own. I spent nights lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what my life would have been like if he had been there. Would I have been different? Would I have had a different upbringing? One evening, after another long day of school, I decided to reach out to David again. I texted him, "Can we meet again? I have more questions." To my surprise, he replied almost instantly, "Of course. How about tomorrow at the same coffee shop?" The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop, my heart racing. I had written down a list of questions, but I was also apprehensive about what I might hear. When I walked in, I spotted him sitting at a corner table, his hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. He looked up and smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey, I'm glad you came," he replied, his voice warm but laced with uncertainty. We spent the first few minutes in small talk, but I could feel the tension building. I took a deep breath and decided to dive in. "Why did you leave? Why didn't you fight for me?" His expression shifted, and I could see the pain etched on his face. "I was young and scared. Your mom and I were in a difficult place. I was struggling with addiction, and I didn't want to drag you into that chaos. I thought it was better to let her raise you without me." "Better for who?" I shot back, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "You didn't think about what it would do to me, did you?" He looked down, shame washing over his features. "No, I didn't. I was selfish. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how wrong I was. I felt a mix of anger and sympathy for him. Have you ever tried to get help? He nodded slowly. I've been in and out of rehab for years. It's a constant battle, and I've lost more times than I care to admit. But I'm trying to change. I want to be someone you can be proud of. As he spoke, I could hear the sincerity in his voice. There was a part of me that wanted to believe him, to see the father I had always longed for. But another part of me was still angry, still hurt. What if I don't want you in my life? What if I don't want to forgive you? David looked up, his eyes filled with tears. That's okay. I understand. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'll always be here if you change your mind. I felt a lump in my throat. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't even know who you are. I get it, he said, but I want to show you who I am. I want to earn your trust, even if it takes time. That conversation lingered in my mind for days. I found myself thinking about David more and more, even as I tried to navigate my relationship with my dad, the man who had raised me. I could see the worry in his eyes whenever I mentioned spending time with David. One evening, after dinner, I decided to sit down with my dad. Dad, can we talk? I asked, trying to sound casual. Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? He replied, his concern evident. I've been seeing David, I said, watching his reaction closely. He stiffened slightly, his fork pausing midair. And how's that going? It's complicated, I admitted. He's not the monster I thought he was, but he's not a hero either. He's just human. My dad sighed, setting down his fork. I knew this day would come. I was afraid you'd find out, but I wanted to be honest with you. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, my voice rising slightly. I could have handled it. I thought I was protecting you, he said, his eyes filled with regret. I didn't want you to feel like you were missing something. I wanted you to focus on the love we built as a family. Love doesn't erase the truth. I shot back, frustration bubbling over. I need to know my whole story. He nodded, his expression softening. I understand. Just remember, no matter what happens, you are my daughter. I love you, and that will never change. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. I know, Dad, but I need to figure this out for myself. In the following weeks, I tried to balance my time between my biological father and the dad who raised me. I found myself visiting David more frequently, and each meeting brought new revelations. He shared stories about his life, his struggles, and his dreams. One afternoon, as we sat in the coffee shop, he looked at me with a serious expression. I want to show you something, he said, pulling out a worn-out notebook from his bag. What is it? I asked, curiosity piqued. It's my journal. I've been writing about my journey, my mistakes, and my hopes for the future. I want you to see how hard I'm trying to change, he said, his voice earnest. I opened the notebook and began reading. The pages were filled with raw, honest reflections about his life. He wrote about his addiction, the regret of not being there for me, and his desire to be a better man. I could feel the weight of his struggles through his words, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of empathy for him. Why didn't you ever reach out? I asked, looking up from the pages. I was scared, he admitted. I didn't think I was worthy of being in your life. I thought you'd be better off without me. Maybe you're right, I said, feeling the conflict within me. But I need to know if you're serious about changing. I can't just let you back into my life without knowing you mean it. He nodded, determination shining in his eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to prove to you that I can be the father you deserve. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself opening up to him more. I learned about his past, his struggles, and his dreams. He talked about wanting to start a new chapter in his life, and I began to see glimpses of the man he could be. Yet, the shadow of my dad, the one who had raised me, loomed large. I could see the pain in his eyes whenever I mentioned David, and it broke my heart. I didn't want to hurt him, but I also couldn't ignore my need for answers. One evening, after another visit with David, I decided it was time for another heart-to-heart with my dad. Dad, I need to talk to you about something important, I said, my heart pounding. Sure, honey. What's on your mind? He asked, concern etched on his face. I've been spending more time with David, and I think I want to give him a chance, I said, watching his reaction closely. He looked down, his expression a mix of sadness and resignation. I figured that would happen. I just wish it didn't have to be so complicated. I know it's hard, I said, my voice softening. But I need to understand both sides of my story. I can't ignore him just because it makes things difficult. He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I understand, and I want you to find your truth. Just remember, I'm always here for you. As the days passed, I continued to navigate my relationship with both men. I found myself feeling more at peace with David, but the guilt of hurting my dad weighed heavily on my heart. I wanted to make everyone happy, but I knew that wasn't possible. Then came the day that changed everything. I received a call from David, his voice shaky. Can you come over? I need to talk to you about something important. My heart raced as I drove to his house. What could be so urgent? When I arrived, I found him pacing in his living room, looking more anxious than I had ever seen him. What's going on? I asked, concern flooding my voice. I've been offered a job, he said, his voice trembling. It's a chance for a fresh start, but it's in another state. I don't want to leave without talking to you first. My mind raced. What does this mean for us? For our relationship? I don't want to lose you, he said, desperation in his eyes. But I also need to take this opportunity. It's a chance to finally get my life together. I felt a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I wanted him to succeed. On the other hand, I didn't want to lose the connection we had built. What if I want to come with you? I blurted out, surprising even myself. His eyes widened. Are you serious? I don't know, I said, my heart racing. But I don't want to lose you. I want to see what this could be. David stepped closer, his expression softening. I don't want to pressure you. This is a big decision, and I don't want you to feel like you have to choose between me and your dad. I know, I said, my voice steady. But I need to figure this out for myself. Maybe this is what I need to do to understand my identity. We spent hours discussing the possibilities, weighing the pros and cons. I realized that this was more than just about David. It was about me finding my own path. I needed to explore who I was outside of the identities that had been assigned to me. Finally, I made my decision. I think I want to go with you, I said, my voice trembling with uncertainty. David's face lit up with a mix of joy and disbelief. Are you sure? This is a huge step. I know, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. But I need to take this leap. I want to see what life could be like with you in it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of packing, planning, and saying goodbye. I felt a mix of excitement and fear, but deep down, I knew this was the right choice for me. I wanted to forge my own path and discover who I truly was. Before leaving, I made sure to have one last conversation with my dad. Dad, I'm moving with David, I said, my heart heavy. He looked at me, his expression a mix of sadness and pride. I always knew you would need to find your own way. Just remember that I love you, no matter what. I love you too, Dad, I said, tears streaming down my face. Thank you for everything. As I drove away, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. I was leaving behind the life I had known, but I was also stepping into a new chapter filled with possibilities. David and I embarked on this journey together, and I felt a sense of hope for the future. In the months that followed, I learned so much about myself and about David. We faced challenges, but we also celebrated victories. I saw him work hard to overcome his past, and slowly but surely, he became the father I had always wanted. Through it all, I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about the connections we choose to nurture. I found my place in this new world, and I was finally ready to embrace my identity. As I sat on the porch one evening, watching the sunset with David, I realized that life is a journey of self-discovery. It's messy, complicated, and often painful, but it's also beautiful and transformative. I had started this journey feeling lost, but I ended it with a newfound sense of self and a deeper understanding of what it means to be a family. I had taken the leap, and it had led me to a place of healing, hope, and love. And that was the greatest gift of all.